Hi everybody, this is Will Bowen with today's JumpStart. Currently, my favorite podcast is a podcast by two guys, Chuck and Josh, and it's called Stuff You Should Know. Now, the interesting thing about Stuff You Should Know is it's one of the very first podcasts. Been around since 2007, if I'm not mistaken. They have thousands of episodes, and it literally is just stuff you should know. And the thing I like about it, too, is the two guys are super duper nice to each other. There's no sarcasm. It's like they're always trying to be just super nice to each other. And they cover anything and everything. And recently, they did a story that I wanted to share with you, and it was about the Sandman. Now, in our culture, we talk about the Sandman. And of course, nowadays, there's sort of a Disney-esque representation of those old fairy tales. The old fairy tales were actually pretty grisly in many cases. The story of the Sandman goes back to Danish culture, long before Hans Christian Andersen made it a lot more palatable and nice. And of course, the idea of the Sandman comes from the fact that we wake up with, in Spanish, they actually have a word for it, by the way. We call it stuff or eye boogers or whatever. In Spanish, they call it lagañas. My wife, whose first language is Spanish, taught me that. But people always wonder, where does this come from? Why do we have this? And it came as a result of parents trying to get their kids to go to sleep. Now, that is something that literally all parents have struggled with throughout time, and I'm not suggesting you do what the originators of the Sandman did, because the story was that the Sandman lived at the North Pole. Maybe that's where they got the idea that Santa lived at the North Pole. And he had all these wolf pups, and the wolf pups ate children's eyeballs. So when you lay in bed, as you're going to sleep, the Sandman comes and checks your eyes. And the way you know that he checks your eyes was the next morning there would be sand in your eyes. That meant the Sandman came and checked your eyes. Now, if the Sandman sees that your eyes are open, he would snatch out your eyes and take them and feed them to his wolf pups. Sounds terrible, of course. And children, though, would believe these kinds of things. And so what would they do? They would say, go to sleep or the Sandman will get your eye. Boom. They didn't even have to tell them to go to sleep. They just told them to close their eyes. And what's going to happen to anyone if they lie down long enough after dark with their eyes completely closed, unless they suffer from insomnia or something like that? You're going to fall asleep. So it was an incredibly clever way of getting children to close their eyes, which ultimately meant go to sleep. I bring all this up to you to say, in what ways are you fighting reality rather than accepting it by coming up with a more creative solution? In Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about he and his father trying to push a milk calf into a barn, into a stall, and the calf just would not go, would not go, would not go. And finally, one of the women came over and extended her finger, and the calf began to nurse on the finger, and she slowly backed up, and the calf followed her. Same thing. Be creative with your solutions. So often we try to muscle our way through things rather than be creative, and that creativity is ours. Now, be kind with it. Don't tell children bad stories, but use your creativity to solve problems in your health, your family, your relationships, your career. You can do it. Try something creative today. Enjoy today. We'll talk tomorrow. Bye-bye.